Hello, friends and clients. I am Jennifer Walker Gates, board certified immigration attorney with JLW Immigration Law Group. And I am here today to talk to you about whatever you want to talk about with respect to immigration. But first, in this video, we'll start off talking a little bit about parole in general, not just parole in place, but the whole concept of parole, and especially travel with parole. That's usually what it is for most of the time, is traveling into the United States. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Before we get to that, I do want to take a second and ask any viewers, if you're not already subscribed to our YouTube channel, please subscribe. We publish material on our channel almost every single week with updates, with step-by-step guidance, with very clear and reliable, trustworthy information about how to successfully get through your immigration process. So we want to make sure people are subscribed, and that helps others understand where they can find reliable information too. So subscribe to our channel. If you're with us on Facebook, follow us on Facebook, give us a like. Leave comments on either side, and we do respond on YouTube. I do definitely respond to those comments on the videos that are asking questions about that content. So anytime you have questions, shoot us a question and we'll be happy to respond. Okay, so talking about parole and travel with parole. So parole is this weird concept that it's sort of almost like a substitute for an admission, or almost like an invitation into the United States. It's not exactly a visa. It doesn't give you status like a visa would. It doesn't come automatically with work authorization, although sometimes those two things can come together. But parole it's kind of like an invitation to come into the United States. In adjustment of status cases, individuals who are applying for adjustment of status can ask for what's called advance parole. And advance parole is a document, basically an agreement that the government gives to someone who's applied for it to be able to leave the US and then return with that document. Sometimes parole can be requested for individuals who have never been in the United States, or who may have been in it at some point but have left and are now somewhere else. Parole can be granted for a number of different reasons. It may be because you have an adjustment of status application pending. It may be that there is some kind of humanitarian purpose for requesting parole, that you need to enter the United States for medical treatment, or to be reunited with your family, or for a funeral, or to help someone who is dealing with a lot of serious medical issues. Those are different reasons that parole can be granted. Parole has also been made available to people who have DACA, who have deferred action for childhood arrivals. Advanced parole has been made available to those people, so on a number of different for a number of different reasons, so that they can leave and return to the United States with permission. And in order to be eligible for adjustment of status, you have to be able to prove that you entered the United States with permission or parole, meaning with a visa or a parole document. And so that is why this Parole in Place program that is coming up, hopefully next Monday, we're hoping for the regulations to be published by next Monday. That's why it's going to create some new eligibility for adjustment of status that didn't exist before, because some people who enter the US without permission will be granted parole already in the United States, to basically allow them to show that they have this invitation to come in. They've been admitted with a parole document, and that makes you eligible for adjustment of status. That's why people who don't qualify for the program, but who entered without permission, can't apply for adjustment in the US, but rather they have to leave the US and apply for an immigrant visa at the consulate outside the US. So, travel with parole, a lot of times people hear that there's no guarantee that when you travel with parole, there's no guarantee you'll be allowed back in the country. While that is technically true, the same is generally true for any kind of visa. Certainly, it's true for tourist visas. It can be true for other kinds of non-immigrant visas as well, student visas. A lot of people are actually subject to being turned away at the border, even if they have this permission to enter, if they are found to not comply with the requirements for entry by the officer who is examining those documents. So an officer at the border can examine your documents and say, hey, I think you have this student visa, but I think that you've been working in the United States. So I don't think that your intent is to enter to study. You're not allowed to come in. Or you have this tourist visa, but I see that you have been here X number of days and X number of times, or that you have certain family members in the United States. And I don't think that your purpose is to come to visit. I think your purpose is to come live permanently in the US. You're not allowed to come. So those things can happen with almost any kind of visa, including parole. However, I will say that in my 19 years of practicing immigration law and working with hundreds of clients who have traveled with parole outside the United States, I have never seen a single client denied entry with their parole document. I have seen one client who was questioned at the border related to a criminal arrest that she had had in the United States. And she got hassled a little bit at the border about that. But she had the documents with her to show that the case had been dismissed. And ultimately, she was allowed to come in. This was during one of the presidential administrations where the attitude toward immigration was very negative. And so this is the kind of thing that we see a lot when we have a change of administration and a change in kind of the approach to immigrants in general, is that people who are allowed to come into the United States, who have every legal right to enter, can sometimes nevertheless be treated badly and treated as though they're somehow a criminal, just because the leadership is modeling this kind of very negative disposition towards immigration. Hopefully, we're not going to see that again anytime soon. Hopefully, we'll remain, a country that welcomes immigrants as much as possible. We need the workforce. We need the flow of courage, determination, and sacrifice that comes into our culture from people who immigrate out of their homeland to do something different in a different place. That's a lot of really strong determination, values, sacrifice on behalf of things that we care about in the United States. It's a strong work ethic that we get. And so overall, immigration is very, very good for the United States. It's a huge part of why the United States culturally has remained very strong for a very long time. And that is why we support it at JLW Immigration Law Group. And it's an honor to do so. So I want to share a couple of bits of good news, bad news with respect to the new parole in place program. Now, I don't have official information yet any more than anyone else does, but I have been hearing from sources that I consider trustworthy that there are some things to keep in mind about PIP for everyone to be very clear about. First, the good news. It's important to know that widows will qualify for the PIP program if they otherwise would qualify if their spouse was still alive. Their spouse will have to have been a citizen by June 17th, 2024. That date's going to be very firm. You have to have been married by June 17th, 2024. That date is very firm. However, individuals whose qualifying relative, spouse, petitioner has passed away will still be able to apply for the parole in place program, just as they would if they were applying for the immigrant visa program. So that benefit will be available to widows. And so we were very pleased to get confirmation unofficially that that's the case. Also, children who are stepchildren of U.S. citizens and who otherwise meet the criteria for this program will be eligible to apply for the benefit even if their parent doesn't qualify. So stepchildren and children will be able to apply for the benefit even if their parent doesn't. So they can apply independently. Very good news there. Now for the bad news. This program is not going to change or override or contradict any law or regulation that is already on the books. That means that people who have the permanent bar definitely won't be able to benefit from this program. People who are not eligible for adjustment of status probably won't qualify for this program. So people who have entered with a visa that doesn't qualify for adjustment of status, like a C visa or something like that, this program is not going to try to change or override anything that's already written and already established. This program was created in a really narrow way to be able to survive legal challenges. Hopefully, at some point, it will be expanded. Hopefully, we'll continue to see movement in our laws toward creating some new legal pathways for individuals in the United States. There aren't enough of those. They're too narrow as they are. But right now, this program is only going to create some relief for those individuals that meet the criteria of having 10 years in June of 2024 of presence in the United States and already married to a U.S. citizen by that date. So I am hopeful that we'll get regulations very soon. I suspect it will probably be Monday. And so even though they're saying that applications will be accepted on Monday, I don't see anyone being able to apply on Monday because we still are going to have to read and digest all of those regs. And so we'll just have to see what those actually say. There's still a whole bunch of information we don't know about what could be a disqualifying criminal conviction, what won't be, whether you can travel with this parole in place document. That's a big question that they still have not answered. We've seen other parole in place situations where I've heard people have traveled, but I've never personally felt comfortable sending my clients to travel with it. But rather, I've asked my clients to wait and get the advanced parole that they can get when they apply for adjustment of status. So hopefully people will be able to travel with this parole in place document, but we still don't know for sure. Still waiting on the regulations for that. So with that, I would like to answer questions for y'all if I possibly can. Let me see what comments we have. Green Thumb Girl, I'm glad to see you again. Good morning, Face Fuchsia Flower Shape. Well, Face Fuchsia Flower Shape to you as well. I hope that you are having a great week. It's great to see you here again. Thank you for being here. Do we have any other questions? Let's see. Any option for overstayed parents with an ADHD U.S. citizen child? Okay, Tash, that's a really good question. Yes, those people do have options. However, it's important to note that in order for a parent who overstayed to qualify for adjustment of status through their U.S. citizen child, the U.S. citizen child has to be 21 years or older. There might be other options for parents in that situation to request something called medical parole. Medical parole is another form of parole in place. It's actually, let me clarify this. It's actually medical deferred action. It's not medical parole. Medical deferred action is a type of sort of temporary status that a person can sometimes request if they are attending to someone in the United States who has serious medical issues going on. I don't know if ADHD would qualify. I think that in my experience, the conditions that typically qualify are very life-threatening, serious conditions that require a great deal of presence of the family at medical appointments and in hospitals and things like that. So I don't know about ADHD, if that would suffice. It might. But medical deferred action is really the only kind of benefit that you can apply for affirmatively without being in immigration court based on hardship to a child, a US citizen child. So I hope that that makes sense. For anyone who has a question like this, like, is there anything I can do about my status? And it's kind of a general question. I always also assess for U visa eligibility, and I also take the opportunity to educate and inform whoever I'm meeting with about U visa eligibility. I hope your parents don't qualify for U visas, or you or anyone, because they require suffering from criminal activity that is really scary and awful. So I really don't want that. I don't wish that on anyone. However, the reality that we live with in the United States is that immigrants are often targeted by criminals. And there's a lot of crime in the US, especially in certain parts. And so there are a lot of people who do qualify for a U visa, based on having been subjected to armed robbery, subjected to any kind of attempted kidnapping, subjected to any kind of serious assault. Sometimes I've had all kinds of different criminal issues that have arisen, stalking, threats against one's life, domestic violence, sexual abuse, sexual assault, whether that's against the immigrant, him or herself, or against one of their US citizen children. These kinds of situations are unfortunately all too common. If there is a bright side to that situation, it is that sometimes people in those situations who have cooperated with authorities can apply for immigration benefits. So the moral of that story is basically, I hope that doesn't happen, but if it does, it is really important to notify authorities, cooperate with the police, help them as best you can. Don't be scared to request the assistance of police, the protection of police. Doesn't matter what your immigration status is in the United States, everyone in the US has a right to protection from the police in the United States if you need it. So it's a good idea to keep that in mind, share that information. Hopefully you won't need it, but it is important to assess anytime I'm meeting with someone, because I've just met too many people who did qualify for benefits based on an experience like this, but were never asked about it and didn't know. And so now I just tell everybody. All right. Let's see. We have another question. Jackie Rivero. Any updates on, oh, thank you. Any updates on humanitarian parole for Venezuelans? It was suspended. You are correct, Jackie. It was suspended. And it has not been unsuspended to date that I am aware of. It was not only suspended for Venezuelans, it was also suspended for Cubans, Haitians, and Nicaraguans. I don't believe it was suspended for Ukrainians, but I could be wrong about that. I need to confirm. I'm not 100% sure if the Ukrainian program is still underway, but definitely for the 4 Latin American countries that had that humanitarian parole option available, apparently there was some kind of suspicion that individuals were sponsoring too many people and were kind of like setting up businesses to offer sponsorship, but the sponsorship wasn't genuine or valid, and they were just exploiting basically this program for their own gain and signing contracts with the US government to help take care of people when in fact they weren't actually going to do that and didn't have intention to do that. That is unfortunately the kind of exploitation that happens to immigrants in the immigrant community all too often. And so it was suspended while there is an investigation going on. I don't think that investigation has been concluded. I haven't heard any other news about that situation. I wish I had more of an inside track on what is happening with it, but I don't. So rest assured that as soon as that program reopens, we will definitely um, keep everyone informed. It does remind me, however, that one other thing I wanted to recommend to our audience, to our viewers, is that if you don't have already an online account with USCIS set up, it's a really good idea to set one up. The program for humanitarian parole for Venezuelans, Cubans, Haitians, and Nicaraguans was all conducted through online USCIS accounts for individuals. And so we don't know yet what this new parole in place program is going to look like, but the trend has definitely been towards more and more electronic online filing for USCIS. They finally got on board with that just a couple of years ago after decades of people saying, like, why aren't we able to file online? They finally are doing it, and now they're really pushing it. So they really want people to file online when possible. They really want people to use their online accounts. I can tell you that seeing my clients' online accounts has been impressive for me in general. People are able to really get super fast, timely updates and notifications about what's happening in their cases. So I think for most people, it's a real advantage to have an online account if you can. So not a bad idea to set up a USCIS online account. I don't think you even necessarily have to have a case pending in order to set up the account. You can just kind of set up a profile. And if you do have a case or have a case pending, then you can attach the case to your online profile and then begin receiving updates about it, even if you didn't file it online. So I hope that this has been helpful. It's another week without PIP regulations, but hopefully by next week, we'll see those and we'll be able to talk more in detail about what those say, what those mean. I hope in the meantime, everyone is safe and sound. Please, again, subscribe to our channels, follow us, leave us comments if you need to. We'll be back again next Wednesday at noon to answer your questions. Bring them then, and we will see you next week. Thank you, Anne. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.